I'm sure you've seen birds flying, flocking together, and creating those very beautiful patterns in the sky, right? Did you know that the beautiful patterns that these birds create arise out of very simple rules that each one of these birds within the flock must follow? Today, we'll look at programming something called as the game of life, where such beautiful patterns or complex patterns arise or emerges out of very simple rules.
So, what now, RK?
I guess we should introduce ourselves. Hello, I'm RK.
And I'm Ravi.
Welcome to our podcast, where two veterans of IT explore all things beautiful in technology
And maybe life.
and maybe life. So I'm going to do this in JavaScript, and you know what? Let's keep the JavaScript file and the HTML file separate. All right, so we'll give this a nice new title, call it the game of life. All right, so that the window has like a nice title to it. Head. Then this is the body, and this is where I'm going to put the canvas. It's actually not that complicated. Whenever you speak about canvas or anything, you just have to say canvas, and we'll give it an ID. So we'll call this the game of life canvas, goal canvas. In Hindi, it actually, I mean, if anybody speaks Hindi, this basically means a round canvas, which doesn't make a lot of sense. We'll just call it the G life canvas. All right, and we'll give it a width. Width is let's say 400. Now, because I'm going to be showing the screen a little bit expanded, let me just keep it at 400. I think that should be fine. Height is equal to 400, like a nice square 400 by 400 canvas. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, yeah. So because this doesn't have an end tag, I just complete it like this. Now, the great thing about this is that I can just open my browser and go to localhost, I think. Yeah, that's about it. So you can't see the canvas right now because but trust me, it's there. So you might be wondering what localhost is. I'm actually hosting this in Apache, and what I've done in Apache is I have set my this JavaScript folder as the source, as the document root. Once you do that, it picks up the index.html and it shows this. Of course, you can't see it right now because the canvas is the same color as the HTML. So let's just introduce a little bit of style. Now, I know a lot of people would actually like me to create a new style sheet and everything, but since this is just a placeholder for all the, we'll just create the style tags here itself. So I'll call it dot, I'll say, okay, all canvases. So whatever I'm putting here applies to all canvases. Say border is 1 pixel solid. What color do you want me to give it? Like a nice dark, I'll say 999999. All right, yeah. So there you go. So this shows up, and then yeah. So that's what it is supposed to look like. I know it's probably a very small window. Let me try and. I mean, first of all, I am going to be zooming it in, but let's make it a little bit bigger. All right, let's say 1000 pixels by 800 pixels. That seems good enough. All right. Okay. So we do need a few things to go. So we will need a few things over here. Okay, so we'll talk about the setup. We'll follow a few steps to actually complete the game of life. All right. So I'm planning to actually finish this in like about 1 hour, 15 minutes or so. All right. We'll do the setup, and then we'll code up the JavaScript, and then we'll show it running. and all of those things. All right. So I think the setup is already complete because we have the canvas, we have the HTML page. All we have to do now is start doing the JavaScript thing. All right. So how does the Game of Life work? Basically, Game of Life is like a two-dimensional grid. All right. So all we need is like a two-dimensional grid. You know what? Instead of speaking about it, why don't I just show it on Wikipedia and show you what it looks like, right? All right, so Conway's Game of Life. So this is what it is supposed to look like. So essentially, this is nothing but a grid of, this is nothing but the two-dimensional grid. And the grid is populated by something called as cells. Each one of these cells is basically either active or it is non-active. But every time a cell is active, some rules are applied on it. Remember how in the introduction I was talking about emergent behavior through very simple rules? Now let's just look at the rules as to what rules are there, and let's see, and we'll go from there. All right. So the rules are: any live cell with fewer than 2 live neighbor dies as if by underpopulation. All right. So I am a cell. I have some things I have some other cells that are surrounding me. So if there are fewer than 2 of them, or if there is just, or if I'm like the only one who's alive, basically I die by underpopulation. If any cell, any live cell with 2 or 3 live neighbors lives on to the next generation, any live cell with more than 3 live neighbors dies as if by overpopulation. And the fourth one, any dead cell with exactly 3 live neighbors becomes a live cell as if by reproduction. All right. So if this is like a dead cell, so if there is nothing on this particular cell, but if there are 3 cells surrounding it, it will become alive. Or basically the 3 reproduce and they create a new cell. However you want to make it. All right. So the first task that we have is to essentially make a grid. All right. So let's just make a grid. All right. Okay. So let's just make a grid. To do that, first I'll have to create the JavaScript file. So I'll just create a new file and I'll call it the gameoflife.js. Okay. So we'll say, so we already know what the length and the height are supposed to be. So we'll create the width and the height as constants within the Game of Life. Right, so that's the height. So we can go one of 2 ways. One, we can make the cells of a specific height or width, and we can populate the entire thing using whatever specific cell size that we have declared. All right. So if we say that each cell size is about 5 pixels square, then we can say then we can divvy up the 100 and 800 this entire canvas with that 5 by 5 pixels. That's one approach. Another approach is you can say I'll only have a fixed array of elements in it, all right, or a fixed number of cells. So in this canvas, which is 1000 by 800, I can say I'll have let's say 1000 cells, and the cells should automatically expand so that they entirely fill up the 100 by 800. All right, so both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. I'm just sort of deciding on which one to go. So if I have, if I say this is the number of cells that I'll have on the x-axis, and this is the number of cells I'll have on the y-axis, I think it will be easier for me to sort of control the array and all of those things. All right, so let's just do that instead of going any other. Let's make it simpler for ourselves. All right, so variable. This should technically be a constant. All right. Even the width and the height, we'll just declare them as constants so that I don't change them. So that anybody at least reading the code would know that these are constants, these are not values that you should be changing. All right. Or essentially constants that create this 2-dimensional universe. All right. So the number of cells on the x-axis, I can say that how many cells? I can say 100 cells on the x-axis. And we'll say 80 cells on the y-axis. Okay. I'll create a function called draw cells, and or let's say init deployment, or no. Yeah, I'll just call it initialize, or init. Basically, this initializes the grid, and what this should do is it should create our we should also create our arrays. Okay, and I'll call this the game of life array is equal to new array. All right, so this will be like a 2-dimensional array. So this will be an array containing many arrays, and I should also have a copy of this array stored. All right, and I'll call it the copy array. Game of life, I call it the G copy array. All right, so that the variables are the same length. It'll be easier to read and all of those things. Now you need an array copy because, remember, let's look at the rules once again. All right, I think. Okay, so let's look at the rules once again. All right, let's look at just any one of these rules arbitrarily. Any live cell with fewer than two live neighbors dies as if by underpopulation. Okay, so how do I? So basically, the concept that I'm talking about is frames. So we are basically building frames of these cells. All right, and each current frame is dependent on the previous frame. That's why we need two different copies to be existing. One, a live copy, which actually gets drawn on the canvas, and one, a copy which is essentially used to determine what the next frame should be. Now, I know it's probably it sounds a little bit more complicated, but once you look at the implementation, you will understand. It's actually very easier implemented than said, is what I'm trying to say. All right. Now, I do realize I have multiple browser windows open. I mean, I have both Firefox and so I should probably just stick to one. All right, I'm going to stick to Chrome, although although Firefox does happen to be my favorite. I'm going to stick to Chrome right now because I have all my other windows on Chrome. All right, so let's go back to our code. So I have the init function over here, and I need the init function to be essentially called when the page has completed loading. All right. Now here's the thing about JavaScript. I know that there are JavaScript frameworks, one of my favorites being jQuery, that allows me to sort of call that onload function. So jQuery has an onload function, which essentially is called when the entire page has finished loading. All right. And that's like the perfect time for the thing for an init function to be called. But what happens with, but frameworks have two issues. Number one, their versions keep on changing. Mm-hmm. All right. So if I was to, let's say, do this in jQuery and I download a specific version, I guess the latest is 3.3.1. I do it in 3.3.1 and then I upload it. A few years down the line, that framework would be obsolete. So, so it would be obsolete. So anybody who's looking at this video a few years down the line, or even a few months down the line, that framework would become obsolete. So that's number one. So I'm trying to do at least this one using as little framework as possible. But that doesn't mean that I'm averse to the idea of frameworks. I know frameworks have a time and a place. This one is not. This one is not it. I think the second problem with frameworks is that there is just too many of them. Right? There's jQuery, and if I use jQuery, somebody will say maybe you should have done this in Angular or React. One of these modern frameworks, right? So yeah, so there'll always be opinions floating about. So no frameworks, it's just pure HTML and pure JavaScript. All right. But how do I call the init function? We can do this on the window load. All right. So there is a body over here, and it allows you to say on load, call a JavaScript function. All right. So I can call the init function when the body is loaded. But yeah, already you see a problem. I mean, I have not invoked the script tag over here. I have not said script language is equal to JavaScript src is equal to gameoflife.js. I think that's it. I think that's all you have to do. So I'm going to test the init function, whether it is called when this is done. So I'll say what? Alright, so we'll console log the initialize when this gets initialized. Alright, which means that I'll have to open the console. So the console is here. So there is no fab and co. Okay, yeah, so there you go. So that's the initialize function that is being called when this gets loaded. Alright. Okay, so now I have a copy. I have these arrays. I'm also going to create a function that essentially copies one array into another array, because I'm going to be invoking this over and over again. Every frame of the video, every frame of the animation that gets loaded, this copy needs to be called, because the previous TX needs to go to the copy array. All right. Actually, instead of calling it the copy array, maybe I should just call it the previous frame, the current frame and the previous frame. Let's just call that. Let's just rename these variables too, because so that it's easier to understand. Oh God, one of these variables is longer than the other and it screws up my indentation. I'll just call it up. Sorry about that. The current frame and the previous frame. All right, so these are both arrays. Current frame is equal to new. Okay, yeah, so it already is a new array. So I can say for where I is equal to 0. So right now I'm creating the frame. All right, I less than nums, the number of cells on the x-axis, I plus plus. The number of cells on the y-axis, j plus plus. All right, so now I have two internal loops, and now I can say now I can say current frame of I is equal to new array. All right, so each array, I mean basically this is like a two-dimensional array, and current frame of j is equal to so one thing we forgot to tell. What will this array contain? Essentially it is going to contain just Boolean values. It will either contain a true or a false. If it is a true, it means it is alive. If it's a false, it means it's dead. Yeah, that's about it. But I want to assign this like a random value so that the canvas is initialized with a random value. So how do we do that? Do you recall how to create random values in JavaScript? I think it's just called maths.random. And I'm going to try that. All right. Oh my God, that actually works. All right. And I also know for a fact that the maths.random function returns a value between a random value between 0 and 1. So I'm going to multiply this by, let's say, 200, which I have chosen entirely arbitrarily. So maths.random, basically this entire thing needs to be converted into an integer or basically like a number. And I'm going, I'm sorry, I'll create a new variable. I'll say random number is equal to maths.random into 200. Do you recall how to convert this into?
Can we just say that if it's greater than a particular value, it's true? If it's less than a particular value,
I was thinking odd and even numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking odd and even numbers. What do you say?
But this will be floats.
So this will be like a float. All right. Yeah. So we can do something like this. Current frame of I of j is equal to random number is greater than, let's say, 100. All right. So because we have taken 200, if the random number is greater than 100, then this will be alive, or else it will be dead.
Yep.
Okay. Now that we've done that, let's just copy this current frame into the previous frame, and this is why I was saying that we need a function that copies one array into another array. So I can say function copy array. Now we are going to do this a lot of times. That's why we need this copy array. All right, and we'll just say, we'll say copy frame because we are using the word frame here. So we'll just say copy frame for values in current frame. So this basically values is oh no, let me just do no, actually, you know what, let me just copy this so that I have the proper indexes to go with, right? I don't need this, and I can just say previous frame of I comma j is equal to current frame of I comma j. That's it. All right, so we have so this is just the initialization that we've done. So we have the initialize function that will initialize this array, and then it will copy the frame. Let me just console.log this and see what comes out on the other end. All right, let me see. Hopefully I have no errors over here. Cannot read property 0 of undefined. Of course, there is an error. Of course, there's an error because I never initialized it, right? I mean, I should initialize the previous array also. I should initialize this also, yeah. And then I can just say previous frame of I comma j. I'll just say false for now, right? And then of course I do the copy frame. Oh, yep, that's a typo. You're going to be seeing a lot of these typos, especially since I'm programming. All right, so now we have the proper array and everything. Hold on, it's an array of arrays. So what do these contain? These contain just arrays, but what does this contain? Length of 0. So this is an array of 100 elements, and if I expand this, each one of these 100 elements should contain another 80 elements within them. So I wonder why that is not happening. So we have, I'm going to remove this console statement. You want to use a ternary operator or right? So if this is then make this true, or else make this false, right? Let's see what happens. Yeah, length of 0. Not sure why it's creating arrays of only 0 length, which is kind of weird because I did say so I don't have to actually specify a size of the array in JavaScript, right? I mean, because it's like an ever expanding,
right?
It is ever expanding, so I mean it will keep on expanding.
Okay.
Right, so I can just say current frame of I is equal to j. Yeah, this is actually right. So I could have just done this. I don't have to do the ternary operator in this case.
Okay, so why is that then? Isn't that should make an array?
Okay, what mistake are we doing? We're probably making some mistake.
Else y is 80.
Yeah, so each one of this should be 80 in length. Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Okay, so there is. Where are you console.logging this? Inside that after the function, right?
Yeah, after the function. So after the function, I'm just putting out the current frame, which is, which comes after the. Wait, what's in the previous frame? I bet it'll be the same, but I just want to make sure. Oh, wait, hold on. The previous frame is perfect. See this?
So that ternary operator somehow is not working,
and everything is false. Everything is false because I did this.
Right. So just make that ternary operator like you said. We didn't run it. Did we run it with the ternary
operator? Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. So you can see. So if this is No. So this, yeah, we got to print the current frame.
Right.
So yeah, so this is still 0. So what did we
Okay.
do
Okay.
right over here that we didn't do right over there?
No, something is wrong in that random number created.
Yeah.
So that maybe doesn't work as a
Really? Yeah. Let's try this. Oh my God.
Ah.
Why? Why did we do that?
That's one of the standard errors.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah. So there you go. So now we have like a 2-dimensional array containing true and false and everything.
Right.
All right. Yeah. All right. So now that we have the initialized, and now that we have initialized it, and then now that we have copied it, what I want to do now is just basically draw the canvas. Now, oh yeah, one more thing. The initialization is not yet done. So how do you? So the way you initialize. So we got to initialize the canvas,
Right.
and we need to sort of begin drawing on the canvas.
Display.
Right? To begin drawing on the canvas, we need to use something called as a 2-dimensional context. And yeah, 2-dimensional context. Yeah. So let's declare a variable called as the canvas context. I mean, essentially, this is where we will be drawing everything on. Okay. So canvas context is nothing for now because we are going to be creating it. Okay. So now that we have done the copy frames, let's start to initialize the frame, the canvas. So the canvas element is, we can use the document.getElementById method to get the element within the HTML frame. So in the HTML frame, remember when we created it, we created the canvas with the ID glifeCanvas. So we'll just take this glifeCanvas and we'll put it over here. So that's the ID that we need to use. So the canvas element has this now, and now we need to get the context from this canvas element. This is a piece of code that I have forgotten. I mean, I've forgotten how to do that. I think it's just canvas.getContext2D. That's it. But you know what? I have it on my site and I'm going to look it up for just a bit. I'm going to take any one of these frames. Let me take, let's say, the pollen noise. Oh no, this won't let me initialize. Okay. So anyways, so I have an init method here. Initialize the 2D canvas and okay. Yep. So you do the get element by ID and then you just say canvas.getContext of 2D. That's it. That's all you need to do. So now we have that. So all we need to do is just say canvas context is equal to canvas element dot get. Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? Get. Of get context 2D. That's it. So now we actually do have a canvas context. And you know what? If I was to draw something over here, so say yeah, so I'm basically looking up all of the methods that are there. So there is like a one-page canvas lookup thingy. Oh no, not this. I remember there was a PDF file somewhere. So this is the HTML5 canvas. Documentation. That's it. Oh yeah. I think this is it. Yeah, I think that's it. All right. So let's just look at how do you draw a shape or something like that. Okay. So yeah, you just draw a shape. Now, yeah, so I'm basically just trying to draw a small rectangle over here, nothing complicated, just to make sure that the canvas actually works as intended. So let me try and put a color to this one. Let's make it red. Now you can put colors in two ways. One is you can say, you can give the RGB color in the hexadecimal format. So this could be, let's say if you wanted to make it red, say FF0000. Now, if you're not actually comfortable with this, I remember the fill style. You can basically say RGB and you can give the red, green and blue values from 0 to 255. So I'm just going to make this, let's say 200, 0, 0. So 200 values for red, nothing for blue and green. So if that happens, what happens? So if I do that, what happens? All right, so canvas context and 4 arguments is required. You know why? Because I didn't give anything on the fill rect. All right, so fill rect, how does fill rect work? It requires 4 variables: start position and start X and Y, and then the width and the height. So I'm going to say 10, 10, 100, 100. This is just to try and see what happens. So there you go. That's what the rectangle should actually look like once you have once you know how to draw it. So yeah, so basic drawing. So once we have that, so once we know that the canvas is ready for drawing, I'm going to comment these 2 parts of the code out, and I'll have a function called as the draw frame. All right, so the draw frame will essentially draw whatever is there in these current frame arrays onto the whatever is there in the current frames onto the canvas. Okay, let's just see that. So I have a copy frame, I have the init. One more thing that I forgot to initialize is how big should be the how big should be these variables. How big should be the size of each cell? That's already easy because the width of the canvas is 1000, the height of the canvas is 800. But the number of cells is 100, and the number of cells on the x-axis is 100, and the number of cells on the y-axis is 80. So I think that should be easy for us to do. It should just be the width divided by the number of cells on the x-axis. All right, that's about it. I think that's about it. So let's just try and draw these things and let's see what happens. Okay. So I'll say, let's create a couple of variables called x size and y size. Okay, x size and y size, will determine it in the init function. I have no idea why, but that will bother me in the end, so I'm just gonna, okay. So that will be the canvas, width divided by the num cells x, and y size would be the height by this one. So now we have the x size and the y size. Now let's just run through the array. And for that, I'm just going to copy this entire thing, because the only thing that needs to change is how we draw it. All right, so this is the only thing that will change is the drawing part of it. We will of course not need to create the array, which is why I copied the entire for loop and everything. Okay, so we have the x and the, so we have the number of cells on the x-axis and the y-axis. Now let's get the width and the height. We already know the width and the height, but let's get x and y positions. All right, so let's say variable x. We'll initialize the x position to, let's say, 0, because we have to start on the top left corner is equal to 0. So we are starting to draw from the x and the y positions, and I'll say canvas context dot okay, yeah, so that will be the fill style, and I want to fill these as gray blocks. All right, so these would appear as gray rectangles. So let's create gray rectangles, and I'll make them, let's say, A1, A1, A1. So that's the color I'm going to use to fill each one of these grids within the canvas. And I'm also going to make a stroke style over here. So fill is essentially creating a rectangle that is filled with a specific color, and stroking means, I mean, you'll have to give an outline to that rectangle. So I'll say stroke style. I'll give it a light, a darker color. So I'll say 555555, a darker black color. All right. So let's see what happens now. I'll say canvas context dot fill rect x comma y comma. So the x and the y variables are declared here. What should be the size? So that should be the x size comma y size. Now we also need to sort of stroke. We also need to create the outlines for these rectangles. So I guess they would be canvas context dot. Is it rect or just fill rect? Is it just fill rect? No, I think it's begin shape. Basically, it starts to draw the shape, and then you'll have to say canvas context dot rect. Yes, which is x comma y comma x size comma y size, and then you say, once you've begun it, you can either end it by filling it up or stroking it up. All right. You call the stroke function. I think that's about it. So that should be the draw frame, and the draw frame should be called after everything has been initialized. So after everything, at the end of the init function, when we've initialized the array, initialize the frames, initialize the context, and after that we can just sort of draw the frame. All right. So now let's see what this looks like. Hopefully there are no errors. All right. So there is just one rectangle that is drawn at the top left corner, and it says begin shape is not defined. All right. So I think it's called begin path. I'm sorry. I'm confusing this with processing. I think in processing it's called begin. It's begin path. So it's drawn one of it. You know why it's drawn only one of it? Because we drew everything on the same rectangle. All right. We have never incremented the x and the y. How do we increment the x and the y? So you have the y over here. So this should essentially be x plus is equal to x size. All right. So every time we draw this should be y plus is equal to y size. All right, so that you'll have to keep incrementing the y. At the end of this one, you'll have to say x plus is equal to x size and initialize y back to 0. I think that's how. Yeah. So there you go. So that's basically your game of life. That's the two-dimensional grid that I was talking about. All right, so now we've basically drawn the grid. We're not too far away from the result, from basically seeing a result, but I just want to sort of play around with the colors so that dead cells essentially look a little bit lighter. All right, so I'm going to make it a little bit light color, and I'm truly hoping this comes out well in the video, right? I mean, I don't want this to look a weird color. So let's just do this and see what it looks like. I think the stroke alone, I should change it so that it's a little bit on the lighter side. So let's just say 999999. All right. So there you go. All right. You know what? These should probably be constants. All right. So let me just create constants for these colors. It was whatever color we used. What was that? Hash. Damn it, I forgot. So this would be dead. And live color. What would a live color look like? You want to make it red or? No, red would be too alive. You want to make it black?
You can try with black, you can always change it.
Yeah, we can always change it. We can always play around with colors once this entire thing is done. Alright, so now we have a live color, and let me just also declare the border color. The border color what was the border color I declared as 99, right? Okay. Okay, all right, now let's see. All right, I have not changed anything. Basically, I just declared constants, but let's now plug in that plug in the cell values, I mean the frame values into this one. Look at this, we already have everything that we need. All right, so the only thing that we need to change is, say, if the current frame of I comma j, basically remember these are Boolean values, so I don't have to check any Boolean values. This itself is a Boolean. So if current frame is alive, then draw it with an alive color. Alright, so I'm just going to change the canvas.fill style with live cell color, else it's dead cell. All right, and then we do the fill rect and everything. So let's see that random pattern. So here you go. So that's the random pattern that we initialized it directly. All right, and now it's actually easier for us to concentrate and basically go ahead and explain once again what the game of life does. All right, so take one of these cells, for example. Would this cell live or would it die? So let's look at the rules once again. What does the rule say? Any live cell with fewer than 2 live neighbors dies as if by underpopulation. So this, where is my game of life? So this specific cell that I'm referring to would die because he only has one other guy living next to him. So he basically dies.
So we should have more friends.
We should yeah, but let's look at another cell over here, for example. This 4 cell, for example, he has 3 others. So he will once again he's going to die because there is overcrowding. Oh, okay. Is there overcrowding? No, this is 3 is still okay. Yeah, any cell with 2 or 3 live neighbors lives on to the next generation. So he is actually okay. Yeah, all of them are okay. All of them are essentially okay. Okay, so this is essentially what is the game of life.
But this guy is probably has 4 neighbors. This particular guy.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, this. Which one are you talking about?
That one.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he has 4 neighbors. So he will die through overpopulation. All right. And if he dies by overpopulation, then something happens to his neighbors. Okay. So we haven't even gotten to the interesting part yet. Yes. The interesting part is something really tremendous happens. Sure. All right. And we'll get to the explanation later. All right, so I've reset it back. So essentially, that array that we declared with those true and false values, they appear like this. All right, so we got nice frame and everything going on over here. Now, you know what? I think we are about 60% there. All we have to do is basically plug in the rules. That's it, and then we are. I think one important aspect of this one is that you'll have to find the neighbors, right. And that's a little bit tricky because it's a lot of array operations that happen. Okay, all right. So now we have the draw frame also ready, which is essentially drawing all the frames. Now let's create a function called as the animate frame. All right. And the animate frame is the one that is responsible for essentially checking everything and then applying the rules. Okay, so we'll call it the animate frame. Now the animate frame is going to be called over and over again. All right, so it's going to be looping. Can you close the door? Yeah, thanks, man. Because I think my voice essentially echoes. Oh, I think you moved the. Yeah. It shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. All right. We got to find a more permanent solution to this. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you want to reduce the AC? Yeah. I think this should be fine, right? All right, yeah, let's. Okay, so now, so this animate frame is the one that is going to be called over and over again. All right. So once it evaluates a frame, we'll have to call the animate frame over and over again. All right. We'll see how to get to that. All right. So let's see. So once again, we need our very famous loops, our for loops. It's just looping over and over again, and this is where we start evaluating it. Now remember, we'll have to evaluate this, but we'll have to evaluate it based on the previous frame. All right, because if I make changes to the current frame, because if I evaluate the current frame and if I make changes to the current frame, then once again, down the line, the next cell takes a beating and all of those things happen, right?
Yes.
So the best thing to do would be to evaluate it using the previous frame and make changes based on that to the current frame. All right. So before we do that, so now that we have this, so now we have that. So now I and J essentially point to a specific cell within this entire world or this entire grid. Now what do we do with these cells? So we take each cell and we get all of their neighbors. All right. How do we get their neighbors? Okay, let's just open up Excel, because I think it's a little bit. I keep calling it Excel, but this is actually LibreOffice Calc. Okay, and let's assume that this is the grid that I'm talking about. All right, let me just draw some nice borders over here. And this is the cell that is being evaluated. Let's give the cells an array coordinate system. All right, so this would be 0, 0. This would be 0, 1, right? 0, 2. What is this? 1, 0, 1, 1. Is that correct? Yeah. And then 1, 2. And then 2, 0, 2, 1. And then 2, 2. All right. So this is an array. This is an array that I have. Okay. This is how it is supposed to look like. Let me just center these things also. All right. So now that we have this, I want to just make a copy of it over here. And let's say I'm evaluating the center cell. Where are my neighbors is what I'm trying to find out over here. My neighbors are essentially at -1, -1. Basically, I'm determining the offsets over here. You get what I mean? Basically, I'm looking at offsets, right? So if this is 0, 0, where are the offsets in relationship to the array over here? So this is 0, 0. This is -1, 0, correct? Is that correct?
0, -1.
Is it 0, -1?
X doesn't. Oh.
Yeah, it's 0, 1. So basically we'll have to reduce 1. We'll have to reduce 1. Yeah, we'll have to reduce 1, which means it'll be -1, 0. 0. And this would be once again -1, 1. Right? Okay. Where is the top left, the top,
right,
and the top right?
Okay.
And then what is to the left of me? This would once again be 0, -1. Correct? Yeah. 0, -1. And then this would be 0, 1. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And this would be once again what? 1, 0. No, 1, -1. Oh. What would this be? This would be 1, 0. And this would be 1, 1. Okay. Now I hope the relationship, what I'm trying to do over here is clear. Right. Essentially, if I am trying to evaluate what is, what should happen to this cell. If I have to apply the rules of Game of Life to this cell, right, I'll have to find out who my neighbors are. Right. And the offset to these neighbors are basically given out by these array values. Right. So so this guy's offset is at -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to essentially copy this and put it into a variable or an array called as offsets. Okay. A constant. See, here's another thing I forgot to do. I should declare these as constants so that it is very clear that it is constants. All right. So we have constants and we'll call this offsets. Offset. How do I declare a double dimensional array in JavaScript? I have completely forgotten. I'll have to look this up. There is going to be a lot of this looking up happening, especially when I'm programming. Okay. Double dimensional array, JavaScript. Oh, it's as simple as that. It is really as simple as that. So that's good. All right. So all I have to do is say, so I'm going to copy everything from over here and I'm going to convert them into, so I have,
That's okay. I think.
I think that, that should be okay. Yeah. So I'll just, there is of course no 0, 0, right? I mean, because I'm just trying to determine my my neighbors. So there is no 0, 0. Now remember, this is just an array of essentially arrays. I'm leaving the center part out. Oh, JavaScript. Okay, I'm hoping that this makes sense as to what I'm doing here. All right. So this is just an array of arrays. That's all. And I have left this gap over here so that it is basically understandable that I'm trying to create an offset array over here. Right?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Should we call this neighbor offsets? Perhaps?
Neighbor offsets. Correct. That's a good name. Baber. You know what? I'm just going to go with the OUR because that's what I learned in school. I know that there are two different spellings for this. There's the BOR and BOUR. Both are actually valid spellings, but BOUR because that's what I learned in school. All right. So I have the neighbor offsets over here. So essentially, of the current frame, I need to get all of the neighbor offsets. All right. Let me remove this unreadable part of the code over here. So I have, okay. So for an array in neighbor offsets. So for that array in neighbor offsets, so it should be neighbor offsets of, so how do I access that specific neighbor, It should be, oh, it's just ARR of 0, 1. It's just ARR of 0, 1. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it, right? So, so I need to get the, so I'll just say variable II, correct? Yeah, that's it. Variable II. I'll just call it, I'm just calling it, so I'm just basically getting the index. So it should, so if this is the current cell that is being evaluated, if I is the current cell being evaluated, the one on the top left would be it would be I minus whatever is in this offset. So it will be ARR of 0, right? Now, I'll just run it through a few ternary operators. Essentially what I'll say is, if II is less than 0, then make it 0 or else let it remain as II. Okay? Because what if it is the first grid that is being evaluated? Okay, so all right, so let's just go back to the canvas so that it's easier for me to explain. So we are evaluating, let's say, this particular grid. What's on the top right of this? Nothing is there. So we need to say if it is on the top right, don't do anything. I'm sorry, if it is on the top left, then don't do anything. Then it's just leave it alone, just initialize it back to 0. That's essentially what I'm doing with this statement over here. So I've got the offset to the left over here, but I want to make sure that it doesn't go beyond the index or the indices of the array itself.
Right.
That's what I'm doing over here. And we also need to make sure that I don't go beyond the other end of the array also. All right. So if I is greater than, let's say, num cells x minus 1, right? I mean, I think that's, yeah, if it is greater than num cells of x minus 1, then it is this, or else it is II. And I do the same with j also. Yeah, so jj is equal to j minus, let me make it a little bit readable. All right, so I have this one, and I do the exact same thing with j also. Right, so now I have the indices. So I have this also. So now I have the indexes of both this and that. Is that making sense? What I'm doing over? Yeah.
The first line, I minus ARR.
Huh.
0. What is that?
So basically, this is the neighbor offset,
Right.
right? I mean, so I'm getting the offset.
Yes.
So okay, yeah, this statement
Yes.
is actually pretty cool. This is the for each loop in JavaScript.
No, the next one, that line.
Yeah. So each one of these is
Yes.
of the neighbor offset itself is an array containing two elements.
Yes.
The 0, comma
Yes.
1.
Right.
So it would be this and
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why do you subtract that from I? I minus?
Oh, I'm sorry. It should be plus. It should always be
I
plus.
don't know.
Yeah, it should always be plus.
Right. Okay.
The reason why, yeah, I mean, it should be I plus array of
Because we are doing
minus 1 over there in
Right,
the
right,
offset. It's
right.
a good catch. That's a good catch. You know, this is one of the reasons why pair programming is such a good,
Right?
yeah, right. Because
second set
yeah,
of
because
yeah.
second set of eyes on the on the
Yeah.
code.
Right.
All right. So we have this now.
Mhm.
Right, so we have this. Yes, what we don't have is the count of the number of elements that is alive.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so we'll declare a variable here. Let's say where count alive is equal to 0. Now that we have this, if the previous frame of II, comma jj, yeah. So basically. If the previous frame of count of if the previous frame of the offset in the previous frame of the offset is alive, then say count alive plus plus, or else don't do anything, or else it never gets incremented. All right. So now we are actually very good over here. So now for a given cell we have how many of them are alive.
The neighbors are alive.
All we have to do is essentially plug in our equations.
rules.
Yeah, plug in the rules. All right. So let's look at rule number 1. Reset this to 100%. All right. Let's look at rule number 1. Any live cell
Right.
with fewer than 2 live neighbors dies as if by overpopulation. All right. So let's put this over here. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller so that it's, oh damn it, I still need to look at the files. So yeah, so okay, any live cell with fewer than 2 live neighbors dies as if by population. So how do I put that? So if any live cell, so if previous frame of I comma j, so this is a live cell, is fewer than 2 live neighbors. Can I just say double equal to 1? No, I mean fewer than 2 live neighbors dies as if by underpopulation. All right. So which means the current frame of I comma j is equal to false. That's it. All right. So that's the first rule. Any live cell with 2 or 3 live neighbors lives on to the next generation. Okay, any live cell, which means if the cell is alive, any live cell with 2 or 3 neighbors, if count alive is equal to 2, or if count cell is equal to 3, I'm going to put this inside brackets itself so that it's not confusing. I think this is the only way to do it. Lives on to the next generation. So all right, so basically nothing changes, so the current frame will still remain as true. Let's look at the third rule. Any live cell with more than 3 live neighbor dies as if by population. Any live cell, if previous frame of I, j, any live cell with more than 3 neighbors, okay, and count alive is greater than 3, dies as if by population. So current frame of I, j is equal to false. All right, so a false means it's a death, cell death. Any dead cell with exactly 3 neighbors lives, any dead cell, okay, so that's important over here. If not prev frame of I, j, any dead cell with exactly 3 neighbors and count alive is equal to 3. Okay, so if just make sure that you understand what this means and what this means. Now if the cell is dead, then the current frame of I, j is equal to 2. So now it has become alive. Okay, so now that we have essentially, so this is essentially the game of life. All right, so we have plugged in all of the rules over here. We've done the animate frame. We also have a draw frame. All right, so we do have everything set. So at the end of this animate frame, all I have to do is essentially call the draw frame. That's it. All right, so I have, once the loop and the determination of the rules has been complete, I'll just say draw frame, so that this calls the draw frame. Now after I have drawn the frame, I need to take the current frame and move it to the previous frame. How do I do that? I'll just say copy frame. That's it. Copy frame. So once I've basically copied it to the previous frame. Mm-hmm. So in the next loop, it essentially calls the this thing.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are there any chances that a cell doesn't fall into any of these rules? And in which case, so if a cell is dead in the previous frame, and it doesn't have 3 neighbors, what happens then?
And it, I'm sorry, say that again.
So in that last case, if for any dead cells in the previous frame, which are not going to have exactly 3 neighbors, they will continue to be dead, right?
They'll continue to be dead.
So we don't need to handle that case?
No, we don't. We don't have to, because that's
right.
Yeah, essentially this is what the rules specify. So if the cell is dead and if it doesn't have anything, then everything is dead in that particular spot. If nothing is alive in the previous one, it dies. So cells can just basically die as if by nothing.
Right.
Only cells that hit that equilibrium will continue on to the next generation. That's what I wanted to show you as part of this one. That's all. You have so many of these questions, right? Like what happens in this scenario and that scenario. But you've set the rules. That's what the game of life is. The whole thing will emerge out. A pattern will essentially emerge out, and we'll see that pattern. All right. So we have the draw frame. We have copied the frame. Now let's just basically loop back to call the animate frame over and over again. Now we can do it in one of 2 ways. JavaScript has a method called request animation frame, which just basically calling the animation, which just basically loops back to the original method that you've been calling. Or you can specify a timeout. So I'm going to call the timeout method over here. And the reason for that is it's possible for you to specify how long you can sleep before you call yourself back again. The request animation frame will essentially be as fast as it is possible for the processor to handle, which means it'll be too fast for us to even notice what is happening. Okay, so I'm just going to say set timeout, and I'll just call the animate frame at an interval of, let's say, 50 milliseconds, or let's make it 100 milliseconds. Let's see what happens. All right, so I have the animate frame, I have the draw frame, and so I actually don't have to call the so remember, I was calling the draw frame on the init. I don't have to do that. I can do the animate frame, right? Because the animate frame will call the draw frame.
Okay, and you're calling that's a recursive function.
That's a recursive function. I mean, it's not recursive. It's basically just self-calling. I mean, it just calls itself over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying technically it wouldn't be called as wouldn't be called as recursion. Now, before you get your socks off, remember there's a high chance that there are a lot of issues in our code. All right, especially with the index offsets and everything. I cannot read property NaN of undefined. Where? Game of life at code at line 90. What is this? I think we did something with this one, correct? I mean, if it is greater than then it is this, or else it's I. Wait, what was the index you were at? Cannot read property NaN of undefined. We already did the copy frame, which means we had the frame already growing. Jj is equal to this j plus the first element in that array. If it is less than 0, then make it 0, or else it just remains as jj. Okay, if j is greater than, this is a line number. Okay, if it is greater than the number of cells -1, then just make it this, or else it is jj. Is that correct?
That looks
Yeah, that looks okay. Okay, so when it says that it cannot read property NaN of undefined, what is undefined over here? Okay, I'm going to do the dirty thing over here and just say zero comma NaN. 0 comma NaN. Why is it saying it's NaN? Oh, hold on just a second. Let me. All right. I think we've made a mistake in. What? Of course. It's 0 comma 1. Oh no, it's 2. Okay. What have we done?
It's gone beyond those numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, should we
no.
reinitialize them? This correct.
No, I mean no, because we are right now only.
Yeah. This is. Should we reinitialize those because you're adding, right?
Yeah. What? Okay. Why is it going to 7 and all?
Yeah, exactly, right?
I got it, bro. I got it. Oh my god. You know, in JavaScript, the for each only returns the index of the element. The for each, right? I was under the assumption that this would be one of these elements, but it's only the index. It's not the element itself. Yeah, yes. So ideally what I should be doing is uncomment this. I'm going to call this index. And then I'll say variable ARR is equal to neighbor of sets of index. it only returns the indexes of the neighbor assets. Yeah. So
and
I
you
think
started doing Python.
exactly.
You are a-
Yes. All right. Localhost. Now what? Oh, you know what? We are not calling the animate
Now
frame.
you have to.
Yeah. What happened there? Oh yeah, it is doing something, but it's
Right.
just not animating it properly.
Correct.
All right, so we now have, okay, so we are actually setting
What is
everything.
copy frame doing?
So copy frame essentially copies it to the previous frame.
Right.
So essentially everything from the current frame goes into the
goes
previous
into
frame
previous frame.
after it has finished drawing the current frame. All right, so we are so if the current frame is this, then we do this, and then we
Okay.
do this one.
So previous becomes that.
Yeah. Right. So after it has drawn everything, it goes to the previous frame.
Okay.
Okay. Now what did we do wrong? Is the count alive not coming out properly? Is that possible? All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and print
Sure.
count alive. Oh my God, there'll be too many of them.
Uh-huh.
But let me just draw one frame of it and see what comes out.
So yeah, there was.
Wait, it didn't even go into that loop.
Should you? Do you want to?
Oh, it did, and it only printed out 0 over there.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it only printed out
Uh,
so many zeros. Yeah,
so
yeah.
you have to call copy frame once before you start animate frame, because you're making current frame from previous frame. Previous
Yes.
frame is initialized to all false.
Yeah, no. So what I'm doing is I am doing the init.
Oh, you are doing a copy.
I am doing yeah. So once I do the init, I am actually doing a copy frame.
So that copies the current frame onto the previous frame.
Yes, yes.
Right? And then it should start reanimate, draw that frame, and then get the new values.
Yeah.
And keep doing that again and again. So this set timeout is, we'll call it every 100 milliseconds.
Yeah. So I'm just going to have 10 cells and 8 this thing so that it's easier for us to read what is going to happen. So all right. So I have so right now I just have these 80 cells that are going on over here. So essentially it's just returning 0 over here. So what that means is that our indices are somehow not correct.
We are getting 0 all the time.
Yeah, we're
All
getting
the-
0 all the time. Hey, you know what? After we do the copy frame,
Hmm.
let's print out the previous frame to ensure that it truly has copied everything.
Copy correctly, I'm assuming.
No, it's not. It has not copied it.
Okay.
You know what we would have done? We would have, see, look at this again.
Oh gosh, yeah.
All right, so hopefully,
Yeah. I think you can, yeah, you can now remove that.
remove the copy. This, call this set timeout. So now hopefully, so I'll keep the grid to just this, and now let's see what happens. So that's basically the game of life. All right, so you didn't see a lot happening over here because we have too few cells,
Right.
but let's just increase the number of cells once again back to 180, and let's see what happens. So that's basically the game of life.
Wow.
All right, now remember you were asking me what happens if
Yeah. One of the cells is
is
already.
dead and there are nothing alive.
Yeah.
Those cells will essentially die.
Anyway, we-
It'll die. But there are so many of them that will essentially get an equilibrium.
Right.
This is an equilibrium.
Yeah, yeah.
So here is an equilibrium.
Oh, yeah.
This is a complex equilibrium.
Okay.
All right, but you can see that it's basically
Yeah, that's an equilibrium again.
yeah, that's an
Over there.
equilibrium again.
Oh, but there is somebody coming to
Yeah, that's to destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. That's called as an airplane, by the way.
airplane.
Yeah, that's called as an airplane in.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at this. Or it's called flying something.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that arises that you could not have actually written down on paper and assume that this is going to come out,
Right,
but it
right.
does anyway.
Because of the
Yeah,
rules.
the game of life actually creates
Oh, this seems to
very
be so stable, as in it's done. It's
Yeah.
not going to move also.
Exactly.
This one, right?
yeah
Yeah. Some of these just going to be
yeah
there until somebody comes and does
And
something
yeah.
to them. Ooh, look at that. Those are some very nice patterns emerging. Oh,
Yeah.
man, that is fascinating.
right.
Yeah. And this,
Interesting.
because we have it randomized each time.
Each time the patterns would be completely
Also
would
be
also be completely different.
Right,
Would also be
right,
completely different.
Wow.
Because we start with a completely random pattern, it creates a random thing every time.
Somewhat, some are like almost fractal like.
Almost fractal like. I mean, no, there is no fractal pattern as such, but
So these are there a fixed list of these stable things like that square?
that's
which
an
is there?
excellent question. And yes, there are a fixed set of stability that arises out of these patterns.
Right.
So
Still
yeah,
life.
so these are called still lives. So basically
Oh,
a
we saw a
block.
block, we
Yeah,
saw a beehive.
we saw oscillators. So basically
Oh, yeah, we
these
saw
things called
oscillators.
oscillators.
Right.
These are called spaceships.
Right.
We saw the flying plane. I
Yeah,
mean,
we
it's
saw
a
a
technique.
glider.
Yeah, it's in Game of Life parlance, it's called glider.
glider.
And these shapes and
Yeah.
all of these
Yeah,
things
we
they
saw those,
emerge
the
out
pulsar.
of yes.
Wow. The pulsar looks extremely interesting.
Yeah.
also.
So this is what I was talking about in the introduction when I was introducing. This is called as emergent behavior. When I think biologists started to wanted to understand how these swarms of birds are created, it was under the assumption that there is a leader among this flock that is
And there is some
creating,
communication.
and that there is some sort of communication, some chirps or something that's happening. That's happening that creates these complex patterns. But these patterns are actually created across the animal kingdom.
Right.
So it happens even in fish, it happens in birds, it also happens in deers and things like that.
Right.
When deers run together, they run in a specific flock. They use very simple rules. Just the 4 rules that we saw over there that determines everything over here.
Right.
Similarly, same 4 rules. I mean, very few simple rules applies to a swarm behavior, for example. So every individual sparrow or a fish must be going in the same direction as the ones that is surrounding. That's number 1. Number 2, maintain the speed same as your surroundings, and don't collide into them. So keep like a minimum distance between you and your neighbor. So just these 3 rules create these very complex patterns that you see on the sky and everything. So right now this frame is essentially come to a standstill.
Right. This one.
Yeah, this thing is come to a
And there's
standstill.
still life there.
There is still life over there, but it's stable life.
now.
Stable life. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, this is so cool, right? Yeah.
And maybe we should also, can we note down after how many number of
Generations
seasons have we achieved?
achieved equilibrium.
Or can we know that we have achieved equilibrium?
No, we cannot, right?
Right
I mean,
now,
yeah, I mean,
that
you
will be a
cannot,
complex
right? Yeah,
thing.
that will be a complex thing to determine. If you have,
Yeah. So this one is easy to see and tell that.
I'll tell you this.
Right.
I think it was Alan Turing who asked this question.
Okay.
How do you know that a program has completed execution?
Right.
That's actually one of
problem.
halting problems. That's the
Right.
halting problem. So how do you know that this is
This is stable.
this is stable, right?
Yeah. Very nice. So can we run it once more?
Yeah, sure. All you have to do is refresh.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. So once again,
Yeah. So there are some oscillators. There
Yeah.
are already some still life patterns. which are
exactly.
done,
Yeah.
right?
So like this guy, for example,
That's an
He is oscillating. Yeah, there's no chance of him breaking away from this oscillation until one of these guys visits him. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Glider. Look at this glider. He's
Yeah,
going to go
glider.
with that oscillator.
Yeah.
There you go.
And he became something
Yeah.
else. So cool. Yeah. Very nice. Very cool. So we were reading, right? So that Martin Gardner was the one who actually got Conway to publish Game of Life in that Scientific American magazine.
Oh, okay.
And it became very famous.
Yeah. And Conway came up with this in the 1970s.
70s.
So I wonder how he even visualized. What tools was he using to visualize this?
That's very interesting.
Right?
That's true.
Was he doing it on a dot matrix
Apparently-
printer or?
I don't know. I think pen and paper. He got bored with Go and such games. He was obviously a British math guy, na?
Oh, okay.
So he got bored of board games. He got bored of board games. So and he started inventing his own.
Oh, okay.
Wow. And I think we are reaching stability here also.
Yes.
Or we have reached.
We have
Look at
reached. Yeah. That one guy.
Yeah, just
that
pulsing
blinker.
and coming
Yeah.
back. So it's almost. So that's almost as if one generation it's gone. And
It's
next
gone.
generation it's
It's
on.
it's on.
Come.
Yes.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
That's an oscillator of a different kind.
Of a
right?
different
It's
kind,
just
yeah.
one that is
Yeah.
oscillating. How interesting.
Yeah.
This is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can we see one with a different color of the
Yeah.
pixels?
Different
So
color
that-
of the pixel. Okay. So what color do you want to see?
red.
Okay. So that's FF0000.
Okay. Ooh, gosh. Oh man, that's bright. Wow. Okay. That's so interesting.
Yeah. It
And
is.
how can we make it a random color also? Can we try giving it a random
Yeah,
color?
sure. I mean, it will take a little bit more processing, but
Okay.
yes, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, how do you want to do it? So I mean, basically we determine the live cell color over here.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So all right. So first, I mean, I need a way to convert. Convert the random number into an integer.
Yeah.
What was the function to do it? Was it just int? Oh, it's parsint. It's parsint. Now I remember. All right. So let's do that. So I'll create a function that will generate a random color every time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'll say gen random color. Variable CLR is equal to, and I'll do it through RGB, right? All right, I'm also going to create a function called just get me a random number. I'm going to call it get random number. All right, and this will give me a random number between 0 and 255. Now I know that the get random number function does not imply that it's only going to return values from, let's say, 0 to 255, but let's just go ahead and do it. So this would be so variable num is equal to random. Was it random that we used? Yeah, it's mass.random. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. Into 255. I should also make sure that it is never below 10. All right. No, let it be. So, and I can say return parsint of num. All right. So this parses the number and then it parses this number to integer and then it returns it. And so we have this CLR plus is equal to what will be the red color. Okay, get random number. Okay, so this is red, green, and blue. All right, so red, so RGB, open brackets, comma, comma, close brackets, return this color. So now we have a color. We can take this gen random number and we can put it for canvas context dot fill style. Ooh. You know, this is the first time I've seen the Game of Life
In
on
colours.
random colors.
Multicolor.
Yeah, and each cell has its own color, man.
Yeah.
No, every frame is a different color.
Every frame
is a different color.
Right.
We should have probably set every cell as a separate color.
Okay.
But that's fine, man.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's just too much. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've basically gotten the point of Game
Yeah.
of Life and
Very,
everything.
very
Yeah.
beautiful. Very nice.
You know, we can make the colors a little bit darker. So I'm
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to restrict it to, let's say, 200. I'm going to restrict it to 200 so that it's in the
Only
shade of
darker
black.
colours, right.
So that it's in the shade of black. Yeah. So there you go. Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah. So emergent behavior out of very simple rules. Yeah. All right. So So that's it, man. Well, that was fun, at least for me. So that's it for this week. Join us back next week when we code up the Mandelbrot set. All right. I've always been interested in creating the Mandelbrot set and the various fractal patterns that it creates, including, we'll also look at the Julia sets and how the Julia set and how the idea for the Julia set essentially resulted in the Mandelbrot set being discovered. The Mandelbrot set to look at looks very complicated, but is in fact a very simple mathematical routine creates the Mandelbrot set. So we'll look at that next week as well, alright? And we'll use JavaScript once again for that. Alright, that's about it. Yeah.